Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to get what you need from the people you lead and also how to build your team for bigger, better potential. And I'm really glad that you're able to join us. I'm Andrew Street, and this is Mastermind Training online webinar with the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. So we're glad to have this time together. One of the questions before we jump into today's content is this is just a helpful way of breaking apart what we're talking about in terms of leadership development. A lot of times it has two major categories, and the first one, of course, is your ethical area of life, your morality, and then, of course, beyond that, your skills, your abilities, your competencies. So if you have a weakness in your ethics, that needs absolute, immediate, and urgent and emergency level attention. If you cannot be trusted, then it's going to have major effects for you on a long-term basis. And all the time, you are finding people that, perhaps they have been able to fudge or to cloud over their ethical abnormalities or ethical inefficiencies or unethical practices. But sooner or later, it's going to come back to bite you. And when it does, boom, in an instant, however many years you have spent building a company or building a political empire or making a name or a career, it's over. It is over. So first off, you want to be ethical because you want to promote an ethical company, you want to work with an ethical team, you want to provide an ethical product, you want to do things that's going to be benefiting everyone on a long-term basis. And then secondly, it just really does help ensure long-term growth. So we've talked a little bit about that, and we can continue to talk about that, but primarily, we're assuming that this should not be a discussion, but unfortunately, many times it needs to be a discussion. So there's no way around it. If you've got a problem, you need to fix it right now. Second major category of leadership is your skill, ability, competency. And if you have a weakness in that regard, then you don't really want to spend a whole lot of time investing on what it takes to shore up your weakness. You really want to try to delegate that out. And we talk about that in the law of priority quite a bit. But delegate your weakness, again, skills and abilities and competencies. Serve from your strong point and learn to get better at what you're best at. Because in the long term, that's going to make the biggest difference for you and your team. So again, recapping, ethics are kind of like running a soundboard at a concert or a public meeting. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of development to do the job well. But once you do a bad job at ethics and it gets exposed, the speakers squeak and everybody holds their ears and turns back to look at the bobazo who's running the soundboard. So you want to make sure that you don't have the squeak happening to you. Because, listen, when you're in leadership, accusations are going to come. And you need to make sure that your life has been lived in such a way that when accusations do come, they won't stick because you will have a team around you that can vouch for your character, and they can say the man's or woman's character is solid, it is intact, and when the accusations come, it'll fall off, not because of your great personality to persuade people, but because they know you as a genuine, ethical, reasonable, moral person. Now, again, back to developing leadership. let me go ahead and move on with this. Back to leadership. If you've got areas of strength and areas of weakness, this is just an example, and the average performance line is here, we'll say a level 3. Many times people want to dedicate a lot of time and energy to an area of weakness. So in this particular example, someone's really slow or really poor at making decisions, but they're exceptionally good at meeting and dealing with people. So when you take that into consideration, let's give you, a company bonus. You get 10,000 rupees and 30 hours of work to work on a development of your skill and competency. Here's where the same amount of investment will show its return. So if you're looking at an average performance line and you put the same amount of time and training and practice, you're likely to bring your below average up to an average in the decision making. But where your average, where your skills have been average, it gets better. When it's been above average, it gets even better. And where you've been over the top, you get the greatest return for the time invested. So you just got a natural intuition and a natural skill there to develop. So go ahead and excel in what you're good at. Be better at what you're best at. And then you're going to find out as you find that niche and as you exercise those gifts and strengths, you're going to have more resources available to you to delegate into the weaknesses, and the whole operation is going to be more easily managed because you're going to be able to find somebody that's better suited for the areas, in this example, of decision making or accounting, and maybe even communications. So spend your time and your money developing your strengths. And I hope that this time together that we've had to give you exploration into the laws and the practices of leadership, that you're going to know better about your strengths and your interest therein. Okay, someone asked a question. What if someone else's wrong ethics are affecting me in my workplace? What if my boss has wrong ethics? Oh, wow, that's a great question. Well, that's a sad reality where a lot of people live, where you are going to be at a spot. Number one, your ethics have to remain true. And if that puts you in a place where you cannot work with your boss because he's making you become unethical or do unethical behavior, then it's probably time to look for another position or another job. The other thing to do would be to talk to your boss about it, or to talk to your boss's supervisor about it, and say, we've got a problem, and I'm not sure, I understand. If there's any potential that maybe you don't understand, or maybe the boss doesn't know what's going on under his nose, opening up communication with a no agenda, just sort of, hey, I noticed this, but it seems that that's not a good behavior to do. Maybe there's a chance that something was happening blind and your boss didn't know about it, and he would like to correct the behavior. That's a hopeful scenario. I know it's not always likely, but if there's a possibility, it's worth exploring. If your boss is being deliberately unethical, then it's probably worth talking to a supervisor. If the supervisor supports your boss, then you definitely want to get out of the company and invest your time doing something that will last and not get you in a situation later on. The history is filled with examples of corporations that have been led by unethical people. And when the unethical boss goes down or the corporation goes under because of unethical practices, all of the employees are going to suffer. It's just, if your suffering isn't right now, it's going to happen. I know a guy that worked for a furniture company, and he was an honest man. He did more than his amount of work. He forsook many of his paid holidays in order to help the company get ahead. But in the end, his company was a widely respected furniture company. They built furniture for the Vice President of the United States and a lot of high-class organizations all over the world. But the leaders were corrupt. And so he had put into this company for 30 years, and the company went bankrupt, leaving him with no retirement, or at least very, very little retirement. So he did his part to be an honest employee, but he was working under a very dishonest system, and it hurt him really bad. So I would be very leery. First off, by recap, I'd open up communication and say, is this what you meant to do? If not, can we fix it? If it is, talk to the supervisor. And if the guy still is working for the company and the supervisor defends him, then I would want to check out and find an organization that's worthy of an honest employee. Great question. Yeah, very practical question. I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about the next section here, the law of connection. And that simply says that leaders touch the heart before they ask for a hand. Leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. Now, I'll give you a little bit of not too recent history. What you're seeing here in this picture is the President George W. Bush there at Ground Zero right after September 11 terrorist attacks happened in New York City. And so there used to be a skyscraper there. Now there's a big crater because of what has happened with the Muslim terrorists. Now that picture shows the president, with his arm around the rescue workers, talking with them, encouraging them, crying with them. And that kind of became an image that says the president cares about the tragedy of the people and the heartache of the rescue workers. Many of the rescue workers, of course, were firsthand friends with the first line of rescue workers that went into the first building that were destroyed when the second building was attacked. But that picture showed this emotional connection between the president and common people, and it did a lot to endear the American populace to the United States president. Now, compare that picture to another picture, which I'm going to show you right here. This is the same president, and in this picture, he is in his private, the Air Force One. It's the aircraft that the United States government provides for the president. And it's a big, huge 747 plane. He's looking out the window of Air Force One down on the rubble left from Hurricane Katrina. Now, in all honesty, the facts of history were that he did the same stuff, but this became the picture that made the news. And unfortunately, this picture doesn't show him, down in the mire, in the rubble, in the wreckage, with his arm around it. It shows him, distant, separated, different, kind of looking down his nose from 20,000 feet or 10,000 feet onto the mess below. It's not my problem, not my people, not my issue. That's what the picture communicates. Now, again, in all historical fairness, the reality wasn't as bad as the picture looked, but the picture showed a major disconnect, a major lack of connection with the people that he was supposed to serve. And from that point on, his political connection with the populace just broke. So again, even though that was an unfair portrayal from the media, this is what happens. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so as a leader, you want to cultivate efficiency and effectiveness out of your team, and you want to get the most and get what you need from the people you lead. You've got to communicate to them that it's not just about profits, and it's not about projects, and it's not about the goals. It's about people. And as you learn to develop that interpersonal care and empathy and connection with people, they're going to want to be better employees and to be more unified as a team. So connect with people one at a time. First off, connect with yourself. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know who you are. Now, for me, for example, what does that mean? I am an introvert. I love to do public speaking. I love to do training. But man, you put me in a room full of people, and I can last for a certain amount of time before my batteries are drained. I'm ready to go back and read a book in a hole somewhere by myself. My wife and my kids are the only people I want in that hole, and that's it. Now, can you be that way and be a leader? You absolutely can. But I know that if I'm going to be dealing with a lot of people and a lot of basis, a lot of time, I know that I'm going to need to set aside some time to charge my batteries. But you gotta understand who you are and how you act. Some people, you just live to be in the party, and it's fun. It's great to be. Every time you get around somebody, your batteries are charged, and when you get into the hole, your batteries run out. You got to know what charges your batteries and how that works out. So know yourself so that you know how to give yourself in the most appropriate time and effectiveness. Okay, so talk with people. Communicate with openness and sincerity. Don't try to always deal with cliches. Just be frank. Be real. Talk about what matters. Go beyond the weather and sports. Know the people that you talk to. Be consistent with your message. Go to where they are. Believe in them. And offer hope. Here's a really powerful quote that I think is very helpful to hang on to, and that says that leaders are dealers in hope. And again, think beyond just the job. Think beyond just the goals. But think about offering them hope for whatever the issues are in their life that they're concerned about when they're not at the job, when they're not at the class. What do they need hope for? Don't give them empty hope. Give them reasonable hope. Give them truth-based hope. Hope for the best that can be hoped for, but offer as much hope as you can while being honest. Don't go beyond the line of truth. Okay, so take a look at this picture. You see a man and a woman, their interaction. And the question here is, who is selling? Who is got the product trying to sell it to the customer? Who's the seller? Who's the customer? Now, a lot of times the initial reaction, the initial response as well, it's the woman. She's the one talking. She's the one selling. But I want you to start rethinking this idea of connection. If you're telling, you're not selling. Let me come back here. Focus on the customer, not on yourself. So when you're doing this and you're either selling a product or you're leading a team or you're involved in a discussion about things, you want people to be able to know that they're valued. You want them to know that you care about them. And so you've got to ask them questions. And if you're not sure what questions to ask, just start making a list of questions. Put it in in your Google Keep on your phone if you need to. Make out a list or post-it notes if you need to. But make a list of questions until you can memorize it and have it always in your head so that you can communicate, not to be fake and phony, but to be genuinely interested in people, that you care about them, and then be curious about them. So pick up on their interests and their families, their hobbies, and their needs. So I got this picture here, and a good friend of mine is actually taken this course in training, and he's a really fascinating guy, and he is a master at just pumping you full of questions, and he's really curious and he's really interested. And I recognized he's doing this now. He sells cars for a living. He's a new and used car salesman, and he's a manager of for many years at this particular car lot. Just very exceptional at what he does. And you know, I'm not even buying a car from him. He's just a friend. And I go over to his house, and all the time he's asking me questions. What do you think about this? And what books is this? And what about that situation? So finally, I decided I'm going to go to his house. This visit, I'm going to be asking him questions, and I'm going to do my best to keep him on his toes, because he's always asking me and normally saying very, very little. So I went to his house and I did my best. I tried to think of every question I could possibly think of. And somewhere he just slipped in 2 or 3 questions. And before I knew it, the tables were turned, and there I was talking about myself again. And he had totally turned the tables on me. Now I told him he did that. And he said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't even know I did it." Well, he's done it long enough, and he's naturally curious enough to where it just happens. So if you develop that habit and you cultivate that practice, it will become natural. So pick up. I talked to Scott and I asked him, you know, what are some questions you ask? And he said, well, I ask people just straight up, why do you think you want this product? What makes you interested in it? And then I asked him about the benefits. What do you think would happen if we got this car, or if we got that car instead? Just asking them what they think. And, you know, why do some people want to do this? So start thinking about, when you deal with people, and you deal with people you like to deal with, ask yourself, what are some of the questions they're asking me? Write it down. Learn to use it. And you'll find out that it'll come in really handy. So we'll go back to this picture, and I want to challenge you to rethink who's selling. Who's selling is the guy in the blue shirt, because he's asking the questions and she's giving the response. And the more that he listens to her, the more she understands he's trying to serve her. And this product isn't something he's trying to convince her of. He's just asking the questions. She is sensing this guy really cares about me making the right decision. And man, I'll tell you right now, there's a lot more chance that that person is going to want to do business with you. Even if they buy a different product, they're going to want to do business with you or work for you or achieve the goals that you want to achieve, because they want to work with you. So leaders touch the heart before they ask for a hand. Great question I like to start off with, especially when meeting new people, is I just ask people, what's your story? Where'd you come from? How'd you get here? What are your plans? What are your goals? Where are you going in life? And, you know, generally they have to stop and think about it for a minute. But, you know, what I find out really interesting is people generally like to talk about themselves. Another way to always create conversation with people is you start analyzing personality. And, you know, some people are like lions, and others like beavers, and others like golden retrievers, and others are like otters, or not otters, lion, beaver, golden retriever, and otter. And you can look into that, Google what I just talked about, And you say, hey, which one of these people would you be closest to? Which one of these animals would you be closest to? And you get people every single time. They'll be happy to start sharing with you what they think. So just open up, take the time to listen, have the curiosity to ask them why they're thinking what they're thinking. And again, the point isn't to be a gimmick. The point is to care about them and to communicate that you care about them. So you connect with people when you ask them questions about themselves. Really easy trap to fall into is when you start this back and forth dialogue. And that it goes something like, so have you been to vacation in Goa? Oh yeah, I've been to vacation in Goa too. Okay, so you have 2 kids. Well, that's really cool. I have 4 kids. Guess what? When you have conversations like that, I understand you're trying to find some bit of connection you can talk about, but people really don't care how many kids you have. They don't care where you've been. They care that you care about them. So you want to ask questions about themselves and their interests and the reasons why that they're doing that or seeking this product or looking in that direction so that they understand you care about them. So try to stay off of the back and forth. Oh yeah, you, me too, you, me too, you, me too. Just ask. Even if you've never done it, doesn't matter. Ask them. Okay, communicates that you care. Focus on them, not yourself. Now, when you're in hostile situations, man, this is really tough. And I'm still working and learning on how to implement this, so don't think that it's easy. But the first thing we want to do is convince them why they're wrong and why I'm right. Don't jump into that. You're going to have to work to discipline yourself to not convince them, but seek first to connect with them. Why do you think that? What are your assumptions? What are the goals you're looking for by doing it that way? And then let them understand that you understand them. Even if you disagree with them, you still may end up disagreeing with them. But at least do your best to try first to understand them. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said it well. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So learn to clarify and learn to question. If I understand you correctly, here's what I hear you saying. Restate what they've said. If they say, yeah, that's what I mean, then you've got permission to move on. If you create a straw man because you're immediately jumping to the logical consequence of their stupid ideas, they're going to be adversarial with you. So try to do it's really tough, I know, but try to do your best to understand what they're thinking, why they're thinking, where they're going, and then come back to say, well, that I get it, and make sure that they understand that you get it, and then you'll have permission to speak. But try to connect first. Okay. Again, know and like who you are and get to know other people. Don't just rush off to work, run into your office, 5 minutes late. Try to get there early and talk to people. Get involved with their life. Know your team beyond the business needs of the day. Learn to be a good communicator. Another something that John Maxwell has said is good communication is the #1 way to increase your influence with people. And so if you haven't heard yet, just making this announcement, our next course is ready on Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And if you want to enroll in that course, it's coming up here in April. And just contact me and we can make that happen for you. Okay, law number 11, the leader's potential is determined by those who are closest to him. That is the law of the inner circle. Now, your inner circle is really important, and you've got to think really carefully, really deliberately, really strategically about who you want in your inner circle. So in page 130, John says, I see 21 things that a leader must do well in order to lead effectively. However, at the same time, I also recognize no single leader can do all 21 things well. And that's why every leader needs a team of people. And this is the key right here. Most people create an inner circle of people. However, they are usually not strategic in doing so. In other words, life just happens. And because I grew up in this neighborhood, I know these people. Because I go to that school, I hang out with those people. Because I work at this job, I know those people. And so life just happens. And, you know, when you're in those areas, those spheres of life, you just will sort of naturally connect to a few from each position that you would naturally connect with if they were in any other position. But because of proximity in life, it just happens. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But many times that can be an inadvertent limit to your potential. And so you got to be thinking pretty seriously and again strategically about who is in your inner circle. Well, your family is there. Obviously, you can't change that. Well, you can get divorced. I don't ever recommend divorce. Just as a flat rule, bad idea. Divorce is always, always, always more expensive and heartbreaking and consequential than reconciliation. You can't change your family, but hopefully you can develop your family, your employees. If you're, a supervisor with employees under you, yeah, there's a chance that you could probably change a few or fire a few and hire some new ones. Again, it's really expensive. Hiring new employees is one of the greatest costs that a company has to undergo. But if you can spend time picking out the exceptional few and investing some development into them, you can start creating a higher impact inner circle, which will then create a greater potential. Social cause. What are you interested in changing in your culture, in your community? Think about the people who are around you and what you have to work with. So, page 135, John writes, of course, no leader starts out with a strong inner circle. When leaders take on new positions, they often have to build their inner circle from scratch. So here are some really good questions to ask when you're thinking about people that maybe are already in your inner circle or building a bigger inner circle or bringing some new people into your inner circle. Number one, does this person have high influence with others? Do they bring a complementary gift to the table? Do they hold a strategic position in the organization? Do they add value to me and the organization? Do they positively impact other people in the inner circle? So when you think about the inner circle, here's a cycle to help develop that. First off, identify what you're looking for, and then who might have it. And so if you know what you need, you can start looking around the people that have some potential there, and you can cultivate it so it'll become greater potential. If it's an area of strength, invest that in them, like I just told you to invest in yourself. If I'm a person that is very poor in decision making, I've identified that as a need, and I look around my company who's really good at decision making. I'm going to start talking to that person and give them some decisions and see how well they make it. And then if I can't find anybody in my company or in my neighborhood, I'm going to go out looking because I don't want this to be a weakness that stays with me. I want to recruit so I have a strong inner circle, and I'm very strategic about developing it with those around me. So, who is in your inner circle? The first people that you got a problem, you give them a call. Who's that person? You've got a concern. Who's that person? You've got something you're really excited about. And boy, this is about ready to break loose. Who are you going to share that? That's your inner circle. Okay. List their names and examine their potential. And again, think strategically, because a lot of times, just because we like somebody, because of a past long history with them, we might give them a little bit too much influence. You don't ask the subsidy while hardware question just because you're old friends. You want real hardware advice, you go to the hardware store. So when we're talking about your inner circle, you've got to be strategic. Develop the strengths that are there, and don't suffer because you're asking the right questions to the wrong people. Everybody has an opinion, but not all opinions are equal. Just throwing that out there. Develop your inner circle and look for people to recruit for your weak spots. So in the Bible, there's a story about a prince who fell in love with a girl and tried to figure out how he could woo this girl over to him. And there wasn't really a good option. But the Bible says this man had a friend whose name was Jonadab. Jonadab told him what he needed to do to get this girl. And it was unethical, and it was a disaster. And he ended up violating the girl. And because of that, he also ended up getting killed by the girl's brother. Now, what happened there? The guy had a very rotten, corrupt inner circle. He got what he wanted, but then it killed him. So listen to this. You are now, or you soon will be, who your friends are. Be very strategic about developing a strong inner circle. Okay, so this brings us to the end of today. And again, if you'd like to enroll in our upcoming course on Everyone Communicates, if you connect, shoot me an email. We're starting in April. And more is coming down the road soon. There's a lot more to be discovered with Maxwell's principles. And probably the next course after Everyone Communicates, Few Connect is a really fascinating book on how to put your dream to the test. What is your dream, and how are you going to let it be achieved? So thanks for being with us. I want to stay in touch. So we're looking forward to helping you further and seeing how far you can go. All right, we'll catch you later on. Bye-bye.